fun when Mark isn't here because you get to keep seeing me again. So you can pray for Mark. He has been texting me. He is at the Colts game again. So I think about a month ago, he took Grace with him, and then today he took Luke with him. And he has been texting me all morning. I guess Luke got lost, and I don't know. It's a thing. But so they're all good, though. So, so I think we have been in this series. This is our third week on our series on emotions. And I think that it's been really fun that Mark has been speaking the last 2 weeks, especially last week. If you didn't know, I was really sick last week and sitting in the back, and it was a thing. But I think it's fun because Mark, if you know him very well, is one of the least emotional people that I know. And I was the one that kind of created this series. And so you got me today, and I'm full of emotion, so especially when I've had 2 Alanis this morning. So we're really excited to get into this, and I do think last week Mark spoke about anxiety, and I think that is something that is really so prevalent today. So if you were not here last week, we always have everything online on our YouTube page, so go back and look at that. But I know anxiety is just something that plagues our society today. So we're going to look at another big emotion today, and we are going to be looking at anger. And today we in our Dream Team service this morning, we have, if you're not aware, we have a little kind of Dream Team huddle for all of our volunteers in the morning before service. And we played a little game about things that made us angry. And I'm going to be honest, just from playing that game, I was a little annoyed this morning because I kept thinking about all the things that make me angry sometimes. Do you know someone in your life who seems like they're angry all the time? That no matter what happens, it could be somebody in your family, it could be somebody at your job, that they just seem angry all the time. And if you don't know somebody like that, you probably don't have social media, because there's always somebody on social media that is griping about something. And I really think if we think back over probably like the last 5 years or so, have been some of the angriest times in our lives, that at least the way we speak to each other. So I've been, probably over the last 6 months, I've been trying to clean up. I had 10,000 emails. So I've been trying to kind of clean up my emails and, filing them away and things just whenever I have a few extra minutes. And this last week, I was working on deleting and filing away emails from summer of 2020. And if you want to know a time that people were angry, it was summer of 2020, because I was the director of a daycare that had only been open for just about 2 years during a pandemic when nobody had any idea what was going on. And so most of the emails I delete, but every once in a while one will just pop out that's in all caps, and I'll just take a minute to look at it and think, oh my gosh, like people were so angry at that time and just so upset about things that nobody could control. And I think some of that has still kind of slipped in today, that it was almost like during that time period, we were able to open almost like that Pandora's box of things that we could say to people, the way we could treat people, and it still filters down today. So how do we handle anger? In this series, we're going to look at how Jesus had different emotions and how he handled different emotions. So we're going to look at how we can be angry like Jesus was angry. Now, some people might ask, is it a sin to be angry? We're a little bit smaller today, so I'm going to treat you guys like a class today. Do you guys think, is it a sin to be angry? Yes or no? No, it's not a sin to be angry. Sometimes we can't help the emotions that bubble up inside of us. But what happens is what we do with that anger. If we're angry, that anger can cause us to sin if we don't deal with it in a healthy way. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 26 and 27 reads, "In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." Now, a foothold means like a room or some access. I've seen it, like, in movies, like I love watching scary movies and things, but you see where like the person is getting chased or whatever, and they stick their foot in the door so it doesn't close all the way. That's kind of what I imagine a foothold to be. It's like access into something. And so when you're angry and you don't deal with that anger, it allows the devil to get a foothold, to get a little space and access into your life. So you give him access to your marriage. You give him access to your friendships, to your other relationships. You give him access to your witness to others as a Christian. When we keep that anger and don't deal with it, it's just a way for the devil to get in and cause us to sin in our anger. So we don't want to give the devil any kind of foothold. We don't want to give him any space in our life. So we're going to look at a time when Jesus got angry and how we can use that in our own lives. Now, some of you have been reading the Bible with us the whole year from January on, and some of you just started on October 1st in the New Testament with us. So if you're not reading and you haven't started, we're just a little bit into October. Go ahead and start the New Testament. It's amazing to read together. But if you are reading the New Testament, this is a story we just read over the last week. And we actually, in our reading, we read it from the Gospel of John. But today, we're actually going to read the same story from the Gospel of Matthew. But I want to give you a little background about what is going on. So during this time period, there was something called Passover. So if you remember way back with the Egyptians, when Moses was trying to, let Pharaoh set them free, the very last thing that happened was the angel of death came in and killed all the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. But God told the Israelites to put blood over the top of their door so the angel could pass over their homes, so their children were safe, and then they were able to go out of Egypt. So this is a celebration that happens all the time, and it's called Passover, and it's because it's remembering how God saved them from Egypt and how he passed over. So what would happen is at this time the Jews were spread out all over the place. So they would come to Jerusalem, to like the main temple every year to celebrate Passover. So that's what was happening right now. And so every Jew in the Roman Empire was supposed to, if they were able, to come and celebrate Passover in Jerusalem. And I looked up, and a Jewish historian named Josephus said there were usually around 250,000 extra people in the city at this time. So if you were down on the Fall Festival on Friday night, kind of like that. Like it was very just packed, people going around, all different kinds of things, people trying to buy and sell, and all of these things. And this was also the last week of Jesus' life, these days leading up to Passover. And this was within the last 5 days of his life. So Jesus, he's going up, he's a Jew too, so, he and his disciples are coming to celebrate Passover, and he goes into the temple, which is God's house, which is supposed to be this holy place, especially all the time, but especially during this time. And when he goes to his Father's house, the temple, he sees hypocrisy, he sees greed, he sees abuse going on in his Father's house. And he does something very out of the ordinary for him. He shows his anger. And we're going to read this in Matthew 21, looking at verses 12 through 14. Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. "It is written," he said to them, "My house will be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a den of robbers." The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. Now, this is uncharacteristic of Jesus. If you read, all throughout the Gospels of Jesus, we don't see him getting angry a lot. Usually he is, loving, and that's kind of the way we see him. He's known for his love, not his anger. He loved the outcast. He was the only one that would touch the lepers, and he forgave the sinners. But this message isn't for you to go home, to inspire you to go home and flip your kitchen table when you're mad today, sometime this week. We're going to look at why Jesus got angry at this particular time. So when did Jesus get angry, and what was it for? Now, the first thing I want you to notice is that Jesus didn't get angry about what others did to him. Number one, I want you to see that Jesus was angry on behalf of those who were mistreated. So does anybody have any younger siblings out there or anything like that, or people that you just like to bug all the time, but then as soon as someone else bugs them, then you're like, nope, you can't do this. So, and I told Stacy that we were going to talk about her today. So, if you know Pastor Stacy, it is a core value. We're going to write it down, a core value of the Well, to make fun of Pastor Stacy. That is just that's what we do. That's how we treat her. And I tell her that she thinks her love language is physical touch, but it is actually being made fun of. That's what I tell her. So we, as a staff, as the youth group, we relentlessly make fun of her. But as soon as someone else says something negative, does something about her, the earrings come off, the Vaseline goes on the face, and we are ready to fight whoever is against her. And that is kind of how Jesus felt. It was funny. I wasn't going to tell this story because it's a little sad for me. But so I went out. I have a friend that's in town, and a bunch of us went out last night to eat. And they were telling me of a time that it was about 2 years ago when I took Grace up to Indiana Wesleyan to just look at the school. She was getting ready to graduate. And when we were in college 25 years ago, there was, and I'm going to use real names. I know this is being recorded, but we're using real names because they deserve it. There was a boy named Chad Peters who was very mean to my friend Kathy. They were dating. He cheated on her. It was just bad. It was a really, really bad thing. So 25 years later, I'm at Indiana Wesleyan, and guess who's the admissions counselor for Grace? Is Mr. Chad Peters. And so I texted my friend, who I hadn't talked to in a year because she lives in Wyoming. I was like, so Chad Peters is here, and I'm not going to talk to him. And so he came up, and he's like, oh, it's so nice to meet you, Grace. And I just looked at him, and I said, I'm Kathy Turpin's friend. I want another person to do this. And so I had actually forgotten about it because I texted her about it. And I was like, that's what we do for the people that we care about. Some of us may take it a little overboard, but that's what we do for the people that we care about. And I think that is what Jesus did. If we look, there were people that were mean to Jesus all the time. The Pharisees said horrible things about him, all of these things. But we never read about Jesus taking shots or getting angry at people that said things to him at all. When he gets angry is when others are mistreated, when the marginalized are hurt, when people are looked down upon. That is when Jesus gets angry. Now, it's natural for us to have our feelings hurt, to have, if someone betrays us, if things happen. Of course, it's hard to not get angry about that. But Scripture is pretty clear about that we are supposed to forgive them, especially after 25 years. But we're supposed to forgive those people that hurt us. And so that's a whole other sermon, but I want us today just to focus on when Jesus was angry. He wasn't angry about what people did to him. He was especially angry about what was done to others, but in this case, especially that it happened in his Father's house, a place that people were supposed to go to be loved and cared for and to worship God. So I want to look at these money changers. Have any of you ever been to a different country where, you have to take your dollars and change them into whatever currency that the country you're at is? Now, they always do a little, upcharge for that, just for the people that are doing it. But what was happening here is the Jews were coming from all different countries to be able to come to Jerusalem, and the money changers were doing a huge percentage of upcharge. I mean, it was not, and these are people that have traveled a long way. Remember that Rome is in charge, so the Jewish people were not wealthy people at all. They were all kind of the underdogs at the time, and so they would, pretty much bring everything that they could, and these money changers were making so much money off of them. And then we see him overturning the table with the doves, too, next to it. And what would happen is doves were something, especially as a poorer person, that's what they would use to sacrifice. And so if you were coming from a long way, it would be hard to bring your own animals, your own doves to sacrifice. So you would buy them there. But what was happening is if you would have bought a dove somewhere else, outside of Jerusalem, a little bit away, it would only cost, I want to make sure I get this right, it would only cost 4 pence to be able to buy a dove somewhere else. But if you bought it within the temple, they were charging 75 pence for these doves. And this is something that the people needed because they came there to sacrifice. So it wasn't really a choice for them to buy this or not. They needed to buy it. So think about when you go to the movies and you sneak candy in your big purse or in your jacket or something. That's kind of the same idea, but they couldn't sneak because they were coming from so far away. And so when Jesus got here, he was so angry because people were coming to worship. They were coming to offer sacrifices. They were coming to do all of this stuff in his Father's house. And these people that were there were just taking extreme advantage of the people that were doing that, trying to make money on what they felt like they needed to do to worship God. So his anger was directed at the people that were hurting the other people. So when he flipped the tables, it was at the people that were doing the hurting. So number 2, when Jesus got angry, he flipped tables, but he didn't flip people. And this is one that I have to say to myself. So he flipped the tables. He didn't flip off people. He didn't punch anyone. He didn't cuss anybody out. What he did is the table itself, because it was the money changers' table, it was the table with the doves, it represented the system that supported this mistreatment and hypocrisy. So he flipped the system that supported what was hurting people and what was perpetuating this injustice. That's what the table represented. Now, this is something that we need to do if we're going to follow Jesus. I've seen stickers and shirts that say, some of you are sitting at tables that Jesus would have flipped. And I think that's true. We need to be very careful about, what we are investing in, our time, our energy, and looking at. Are we helping perpetuate a system that abuses others? But on the flip side, I also think some of us are creating tables that aren't really there, that are just our own opinions. We might feel really strongly about something and translate that into a righteous posture and a table that needs to be flipped. Let me give you an example. If you weren't aware, I am a female. I am a pastor who is a female. Just my existence and preaching from this stage makes some people very angry. And that's just a reality. That's how it is. We've had some people leave our church. We've had some people decide not to come to church here because we have a female pastor. Now, I could get very angry about that. I could, make that, an injustice table. I mean, I obviously disagree with it because I'm called by God to do this. I feel like that. I've read as much, as possible to make sure that I am reading Scripture correctly. But some people have convinced themselves of that and have been on one side so angry and so against females in leadership, especially within the church, that, there's just pages and memes and all kinds of crazy stuff about that issue. But on the other side, I have other female pastor friends who think that only females right now should be in leadership because they, feel like things need to be more equal. So we need to have, just women leading all of these things. There are definitely two sides. Both of them are very strong. Both of them feel they're correct. And both of them are flipping tables at each other. And I believe that that is not what God wants us to do. That God, and that is one circumstance that happens in my life, but I think we can all think of something in our own lives, issues that we see people on both sides of. And they both feel so strongly, and they both feel like they're, flipping these tables of injustice, but what they're actually doing is they're flipping the tables to hit the other side instead of just talking through things. And so I want us to be really careful that I want us, if we see injustice, if we see things that are going on that are unbiblical, that are hurting the people of God, then we need to look at what system is perpetuating that, and we need to flip those tables. We need to get on that. But we also need to take a step back sometimes and think, what is just my opinion, or maybe something that really hurts my feelings or something? Is this really a table that needs to be flipped? Or is this just a conversation that I need to have with someone? We had, this is very awkward because we have a subscription to some videos, and you've seen quite a few. Ripe Videos is a new company that started, and it is a pastor that started a new church in the Seattle area, and to help his church, he started this company. He's a videographer. He started this company making great videos, and so I subscribed to his videos for us to use, because we were stealing them from YouTube before, and I didn't feel very comfortable about that. So we are using this subscription. I love the videos. They're great. This is Pastor Appreciation Month, which is kind of awkward for me to say, but it is Pastor Appreciation Month. And so in a strange way, they sent to the pastors 3 Pastor Appreciation videos to play over this month. And so I was looking at them, and I was actually going to send them to Chelsea because I felt weird showing them. But I looked, and every single video was of a male pastor on stage. Now, when I first saw that, I didn't throw a fit. I wasn't, it was just like, oh, well, that's not what our church really looks like. So I sent a message, and I said, hey, love your videos. Do you have any other options that show females on stage? Because we have a female pastor, and I would just like to show a video that represented what our church looks like. And also because we have lots of little girls in our, in our church, that I want to see them see a female in leadership. And they were very kind when they wrote back and sent me other videos, and they were like, well, there's lots of females in this videos, but they were all just sitting around a table reading the Bible together, which is great. We do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I sent a message back. I was like, I love these videos. You do a great job. You have all different ages. You have all different ethnicities. But I would really like a video of a female on the stage to be able to show. And I haven't gotten a message back from them. But that is some of the things that we need to, just because we have something that's going on doesn't mean we need to flip a table. Sometimes we just need to have conversations, because sometimes people just need to be aware, oh, that is true. When we make a video again, we'll keep that in mind to have, or different things like that. Is that making sense to you guys? I know we're a little bit smaller today, so I think it's so important for us to flip those tables of injustice. But I think that we know that. And I think sometimes when we're out flipping tables, we're flipping tables that are more just our own, not just opinions, but our own ideas, things that we get upset about. So I want to make sure we're flipping the tables that need to be flipped and having the conversations that need to be had. Because remember, the goal, when we're angry, we're not going to sin in our anger. And the goal is not to be right. The goal is to be loving. Because the goal of our whole lives, everything that we are here for, is to bring other people to Jesus. So if you are flipping a table and hitting someone with it, that person is not going to come to Jesus. But if you are flipping a table that shows injustice to someone who is being hurt, then that is showing Jesus to that person. So just think through why you're doing what you're doing. And the very last one is when Jesus got angry, he loved and he healed those who were hurting. So remember what we just read, there were some who couldn't get into the temple for worship because they were lame, they were hurt. There were all kinds of different laws about sickness and about different things that you couldn't come into the holy space because of different sicknesses, different ailments that you had. But look at what Jesus did at the very last verse, and I love how it just kind of stuck in there very casually after he flipped these tables, after he talked about injustice. In Matthew 21:14, it reads, "The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them." Jesus didn't just flip tables when he was angry. He turned around, and then he healed and helped the hurting and the sick that were there. Every time we see Jesus that he's upset or angry, he doesn't yell. He doesn't, write a post on Facebook about how upset he is. He doesn't leave his church. What he does is he looks at what's wrong and helps make it right. And he made it right by getting rid of those money changers and healing those who were hurt so they could come into the temple and worship. Now imagine what would happen today if the money changers were here today. If something like that happened, it would be big news. There would be like this big story about the corruption. It would be on Instagram, and those money changers would be canceled. And just letting you know how hard it is to not use a Taylor Swift quote right now. So I'm just letting you know. But they would be canceled because that's what our society does now. If someone does something wrong, instead of trying to show them the right way, we cancel them. They're dead to us. We don't want anything to do with them. And I really want to look at the hurt and the mistreated that Jesus did not cancel. Think about the Pharisees and how mean they were to him. Pontius Pilate, who was actually the one who ordered his execution. Herod, Judas, Peter, all of these people who betrayed Jesus. Jesus did not cancel any of them. They were all wrong in what they did. They all hurt Jesus. They all betrayed Jesus. But just because you are wrong doesn't mean you are canceled. Colossians 2:13-15 reads, "For he," and they're talking about God, "forgave our sins. He canceled the record of the charges against us and took it away by nailing it to the cross. In this way, he disarmed the spiritual rulers and authorities. He shamed them publicly by his victory on the cross." And I don't know about you guys, but I am so glad that it says that God canceled my sins, but he didn't cancel me. All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but he does not cancel us. He sees us. He sees the hurt. He sees the mistreatment. And he does not cancel us. We can go to him, just like those that were trying to get into the temple and be healed from whatever. It might not be something that anybody else can see. Can be healed on the inside because he doesn't want to cancel us. He wants to heal us. When he gets angry for us, not angry at us. So just think, some of the things we've talked about today. You get angry. It's okay. It's not a sin. It's human to get angry. But don't give the devil a foothold. Don't sin in that anger. If you see an injustice, flip a table. Figure out what you can do to change that system, but don't flip a person. Have a conversation with the person. And remember that the goal is not to be right. And trust me, that is one of the hardest things to do, at least in my life. When we are angry, all we want to do is have that last word and to prove that we're right. But as Christians, we have the Holy Spirit in us. And our job is not to be right. Our job is to lead others to the one that can heal them like he healed us. And that has to be what we do. And I think it's so great that we get upset about different problems. You might need to flip a table that I don't even know exists. But in your world, you see it. But what is so important, what especially I think today, what the world sees in the church is division. They see people just so upset at each other and saying such cruel and mean things to each other. If I threw out some idea right now, half of you would think one way and half of you would think another way. That is completely okay. There is nothing wrong of having different opinions within the church, but we have to present a unified front to others. Because if we don't have conversations ourselves and we're not dealing with this within the church in a healthy way, what people are going to see on the outside is haters hating each other and not seeing any love. Remember, our whole job is to draw people to who? To God, back to Jesus, back to be healed. And if they see that hate and that argument and that fighting within us, they're not going to be drawn to us. So I want us to think about how that in our anger, that our anger can be characterized by love. And really, it's hard because it's all in your mind. It's not something that I can say, go home and take these, 5 steps or, do this. It's not like that. You're going to get angry, but you're going to have to take that to God. You're going to have to figure out, is this something that I need to do something about? Or is this something that I just need to have a conversation about? And the more that you do that, and honestly, we were talking about reading the Bible earlier, the more that you read, the more that you see Jesus and the more that you see who he is, and we become more like him, the easier that is to do because we see what he has done for us. We just read this week also the story of the woman who washed Jesus' feet with her hair and was crying, and the Pharisee who was there didn't understand, and Jesus said, she has been forgiven of so much, so she can understand others. And that's what we need to do sometimes in our anger. We need to realize, you know what? I am so forgiven. I'm so glad that God did not cancel me. I'm so glad that he healed me. I'm so glad that he lets me come in and worship him, that I need to take this forgiveness that he's given me, this multitude of forgiveness that he's given me, and give a drop to somebody else in my anger and have a conversation about whatever we're angry about. You guys could go ahead and bow your heads for me. Lord, just thank you so much. Thank you for what you do for us. Thank you for our emotions. Life would be boring if we didn't have these emotions. But thank you for just giving us your word that we can see how to respond. I just pray for all of us because I'm not going to have anybody raise hands today because I just think this is an issue that probably affects all of us. Help us when that anger, we know that anger is going to rise up. Help us when that anger rises up to not give the devil a foothold. Remember about our canceled sins. Remember how you have healed us, how you have loved us, and help us be discerning on what to do with that anger. If it's something that we need to go flip a table, or if it's something that we just need to go have a conversation with someone, help us know in your spirit what to do with that anger. Thank you again for just allowing us to be here today, and we love you so much. In your name, amen.